Welcome. This is For Better and Worth,
the podcast where we don't believe you have to sacrifice your relationship while you build your net worth.
We are your hosts.
I'm Chris.
And I'm Ericka Young. And we're so glad you joined us today.
All right, y'all, come on. Let's get into it. Hey, folks, we are back at it again.
Yes, we are glad to be here, and we've got some fun things to talk about today. So glad that you decided to tune in.
Yes. We hope that those topics have been landing right where you need them to. They've been ministering to you. You've been getting what you need. And so in that vein, we've really been trying to come up with good things to talk about with you all. And so, like we said, welcome back to the For Better and Worth podcast.
Yes, we have had some really great conversations behind the scenes in preparation for you guys. And I feel like this podcast does so much for us as much as it does for you guys. And so I'm really glad that we decided to embark on this journey. And we are, almost 3 months in, honey. That is awesome.
Look, we just keep pressing record, keep coming back, keep making space to have these conversations. And like you said, I think it has been good for us to go back and remember some of the things, some of the trials and tests and some of the tribulations that we had to work through. So
yes, and we'll continue to share that along the way as well. But today we're going to talk about these aspirational topics. And I think that it's really good to define some terms, to lay some groundwork, and to help you to dream and have some vision and that kind of stuff. And so that's what we're going to talk about today.
I think as we were preparing for this, we were talking about some of these titles, some of these topics, and it gets thrown around, and one of those is, rich.
I want to be rich.
Right. And the other one is wealthy.
Yeah, we want to be wealthy.
Yeah. And, everybody, wants to reach that millionaire status, that millionaire level.
We just want to talk about those things and what that really means so that, again, you have a foundation, a baseline for your own financial wellness and your own financial success. And we just think that it's important to know what you're striving for and why you're striving for it.
I think it's kind of funny because those things mean different things to different people.
Mm-hmm.
One person can think of rich being one thing, whereas somebody else can be like, it's something totally different. And that's the same thing when we talk about wealthy. Mm-hmm. And if you even think about the term rich, I had to look it up, just 'cause I want to see what the definition actually said. And it says having abundant possessions or material wealth. I was like, okay, so rich is, you got a lot of stuff.
Yeah, abundance is the word I love in that statement. And I really like that you got textbook on us because sometimes we really need to hear the real definition here.
Right. And when we talk about wealth, it is an abundance of material possessions or resources. And those definitions sound pretty close to the same if you listen to the words. But I'll be honest, in my mind, those are two very different things, being rich versus being wealthy. And so hopefully we can, we'll talk about it a little bit. And I'm happy to share, my insight or what I believe it to be.
Well, I think it's interesting that you think that they're different because I never really thought so. And so I'm curious on why do you believe those terms are different? How do you see them separated from each other?
Well, when you think about rich, and I'm not talking about just from the definition perspective, rich is relative. It's relative to, I think, the lifestyle that someone wants to reach and the income they want to reach and, the freedoms that come along with that. Rich can be a number of different things. You could be, someone who makes 100,000, 200,000 or whatever and feel rich because you can live the life that you want to live. You can be free of stressors or other particular things. So I think rich is relative. I think people quantify it and they want to say, if you have, $10 million, you're rich. Okay, yeah, that I would consider that to be rich. But if you have $1 million, by a lot of people's standards and terms, they would consider that to be rich. But if you're a 7 or 800,000-aire, are you not rich?
Right. No one says that number, right?
Right, but by all accounts, that person could be rich because that could allow them to have options that maybe other people don't have, that could allow them to do things that other people can't do. And I don't think it's all about the material either. And, an abundance of possessions or material wealth, that was the actual definition. But I don't think it's just about material. It's about lifestyle. It's about how you want to move through life. And when you start putting those things and factoring those things in, I think that plays into, what someone's definition of rich could be.
I think that is a really great way to put it. Relative to how you see rich, because not everybody might have the same definition. For instance, when I was a child, my grandfather carried around a lot of cash all the time. He pulled off 100 easy. He just had his little, I don't know if he had a clip like men used to have, but I know my grandpa had a stack of money, and every holiday or birthday, he would peel off one for me and my sister. He also wore, the cool little hats with the feather in the cap, and I always saw that as a sign of something that a person did who was rich, because honestly, a hat was extra. Right.
You sure your granddaddy was a pastor and he wasn't
Listen.
he wasn't a pimp?
Come on now. Reverend Simmons, yes, he might have been both. I don't know. Let the Lord tell it. But
I'm sure he was just a pastor, people.
Yes, he was widowed quite young, in his late 30s. And so, yeah, he might have been a little bit of both, because he always had suits on. He always had his cash. He always had his hat. So those outward appearances made me as a child see him as rich, and that impacted me. Now, I appreciate you saying that those words could be different, because I definitely did see him as rich, even though I had no idea what was in his bank account. I had nothing to compare this to other than what I saw on the outside, and I wanted to be like him. And I think that's why I really embraced the whole idea of using cash, because I saw that as something that a rich person might do. And so, I think that that's interesting. When you said that, immediately I thought of him and the reason why rich became relevant in that situation.
You think about it. You go to any city from coast to coast, from California to New York, and you go to any inner city kid that's growing up in a rough neighborhood that their parents are just trying to, provide the basics, food, clothing, and shelter. And they see people who they get new cars, every few years. They live in a nice house in a nice neighborhood. They get to go dine out. They go on an occasional vacation. That kid could look and say, man, this is rich people. This is what they do.
Yeah.
And that's when I talk about, like, it's all relative, because it's a matter of perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And, perspective is my favorite word. Life is all about perspective, because it's all in the way you look at things. And we say, if you change what you look at, those things can begin to look differently. Mm-hmm. And so rich is one thing that, I will say, if you got $10 million, you're rich by most accounts. Mm-hmm. But, we'll get into wealth, and I don't know, in my mind, that's something totally different. So,
well, what does it mean? What does wealth mean to you? And I know, okay, so textbook, let's talk about it. The definition is abundance of material possessions or resources.
I think even if you just stop right there and take that last word, resources.
Okay.
That wasn't in the definition of rich, because there are people who may be quote unquote rich, but they don't have resources. And when I think of a wealthy person and I think of resources, look, they don't have to get up and go to work, right?
Yeah.
If you got $200 million, that person is not just rich. That person is wealthy, because they can choose to do totally different things they can move very differently in life. They're not worried about getting up, going to work. They probably are because they have businesses or things in place that they have to manage, or they have managers in place. It's just a whole different, kind of stratosphere, because wealth gives you access to, different things, and wealth becomes generational.
That part right there is exactly what I was thinking about, is that you can pass on wealth. Riches can fade, but when you have wealth, it is deep ingrained. And the other term that you had used, that it's relative when it's rich, because not everybody might have the same definition. With wealth, most people would probably look at a person with a certain amount of resources and
Certain
say
amount of stuff.
that they are wealthy. Most people will agree on a wealthy person. They may not all agree that a certain person is rich, but most people will probably agree, because the wealth or the dollars or the assets or the possessions, the resources themselves, they are beyond this particular lifetime. And so I think that's a fair distinction, I would say.
Yeah, and wealthy, I think you started to talk about wealth and how it transitions. It opens doors that maybe wouldn't be open otherwise. It brings opportunities that maybe wouldn't be available otherwise. It gives you access to things that, other people just can't access, because you're at a level where very few people are. And so you get access to opportunities and people and power structures and things like that. And so I think that's really, when I think about wealth, that's what's so different. And here on the For Better and Worth podcast, we want you guys to go from level to level to level.
Yeah.
And so, like, we're going to talk about millionaires because we want to see you guys win.
Mm-hmm.
We want to see people get to that first million.
Yeah.
And then let compound interest do its work.
That's right. That's right. So you bring up the next point is millionaire. Like, what is it exactly? And here's what's interesting. People can view this term in a few different ways. And I want to make sure we're clear that there honestly is only one way to see it. So you mentioned rich, a person who makes a million. They could be a business owner. They could be, a person who is a CEO of a company and make $1 million in income in a 365-day period. They can earn that and still not be a millionaire. Just because you earn $1 million in a year, or your business has revenue of $1 million, does not mean that you are a millionaire. And so that can be a misconception. Like, people want to get to certain levels, and that's fine. That's a totally fine goal to have, is to earn that kind of money in a year. That's great. That's fine. But millionaire is all about what you keep.
Yeah, you could make $1 million, but if you have 1.1 million in expenses,
That's right.
you're in the red. You are a not millionaire. You're in the negatives, and that's what people don't understand. If you have debt, like you still have a mortgage, or you have car notes, or you have credit cards, student loans, or, I'm gonna even chalk on business loans, business debt, because people say, well, business debt is good, you can write it off. Well, it's still debt, and it still goes on your profit and loss sheet as a liability. And if you have more liabilities than you have as assets, then at the end of the day, you have a negative net worth. And so we talk about millionaires, you have to have a total net worth of $1 million plus.
Yeah. And that means all of your assets. So your house, your car, your goods, all of your retirement accounts, what you have in cash, all assets. So for instance, if you were to sell everything, cash out everything, minus the debt. So any debt associated with your mortgage or your vehicle payments or student loans or anything else that you can think of, loans against your 401k, even just any debts that you might have, you subtract them out. And then if your balance that you have left is over $1 million, you are in fact a millionaire.
So now this is why it's so important to get out of debt, people.
Yes.
It's so important. And it's important to not have car notes, not have, credit cards and mortgages, because your income is your biggest asset, is that you can earn. And as you're earning, think about it, if you're not paying out and all you have is, money coming in, that continues to build your net worth, because that gives you the ability to earn, to, invest. That gives you the ability to save. And people will say, well, then you can get into real estate. Yeah, but then you can pay cash for real estate. Then you have another asset to put on your books. So it's all of that together. And it doesn't happen overnight. It's not easy to get there. And I'm sure it's harder to maintain once you're at that level. But once you get there, it starts to make itself work.
Yeah, I think that if you make smart choices, if you begin to decide that you have a goal worth striving for and you go after it, and if that goal, in fact, is to become a millionaire, it's gonna be some tooth and nail, some clawing. You got to be disciplined. You got to have some consistency. You might have to say no to some things along the way, but once you get there, the accomplishment is, in fact, amazing, absolutely amazing. And so, I think that knowing the definition, what it means, I think it would be a really great exercise to calculate all of your assets and then add up all of your debts and see where you are.
I'm gonna start asking people.
Oh, no, you're not.
Well, you don't know what I'm gonna say yet. You just jump to, no, you're not. You don't even know what I'm saying yet.
Okay, what are you saying, dear?
I'm going to start asking people, like, what do they consider rich and what do they consider wealthy? I'm gonna do my own, unofficial survey,
Let's
because
do
I'm just curious to see what people would say. And I think in the society we live in, people want to look rich.
Yes.
People want to look wealthy.
Woo, say it again.
They want all the trappings of wealth and riches, the designer clothes, the designer watches and cars and bags, and they want to go on the vacations and all of that stuff because they want to look the part. But look, we hope that people are getting free and they're listening and they're hearing that, look, I can actually be there and not just have the look or the trappings or the image of what riches or wealth can look like. I can actually accumulate it, change my life, change my generational life of my kids. And, the things we do now are going to ultimately impact our grandkids and great grandkids. That's what generational wealth begins to look like. That's why I'm so adamant about the fact that riches and wealth are, very different.
Yeah, that's so good that you say that about the whole idea of looking like you have wealth or looking rich versus actually being wealthy or being rich. Because here's the deal. Generational wealth doesn't get passed down in things predominantly, right? So, sure, you might pass down a house, but we're not giving our children the Louis bag or the red bottoms, or you'll probably pass down some watches, but the value of the watches or the value of the bags or the even I would say the value of the home will never equate to the true wealth that you're passing down in other areas, right? That we've saved for retirement or that we have in our investment accounts and things like that. And so it will pale in comparison. So if you're looking to look rich, the truth of the matter is that you'll never really look rich until your bank account says you are, right? That's the truth. That's the real truth. And then on top of that, I find that people don't really understand that changing your family tree, when you're looking to change your family tree or when you're looking to have something different for your kids, it requires you to do something different other than looking like you're rich along the way. Most millionaires don't actually look like they have it all in the bank, right? They do though, but they're unassuming. So I read early on in our relationship, The Millionaire Next Door, and loved it so much that I read The Millionaire Woman Next Door. And the common thread in those two books is that they don't look like they are rich. They are the person who was a teacher for 40 years. They are the farmer who had the pickup truck and just was really great at saving. The common thread as well is that they were consistent with using what they had. And so those are two great books. They're old school. It's from back in the day.
Yeah,
But
but there are so many books and tools and resources out there that talk about regular people,
yeah.
the everyday millionaire. I remember I read the book The Wealthy Barber,
Yes.
and The Richest Man in Babylon.
Mhm.
These are all very, like, if you want to start on this journey and you just want some reading, those are 5 great books right there just to go and read and just get an understanding of some of the fundamental things.
Oh, Rich Dad Poor Dad.
Yeah, all of those are great tools and great resources to help you get on that road. And I think when we were younger, when we first got married, we had to go and learn a lot of things that we just didn't know. And it's not because, we didn't want to know. We just hadn't been exposed to it to the degree that we needed to be. So we went and we learned about taxes, working with our CPA. And it just started out, we had to get our taxes done. And so we just would talk and ask questions. Then we started talking about life insurance and how that works. And then we started asking questions about investing, and it might have been just initially calling the company that administers our 401ks. But then when we got financial planners and advisors, we had more specific questions. And so you have to have a thirst for some of this knowledge to go and understand for yourself. And as you understand, I bet we could start to see people go down that road, go down that journey of creating their own independent, wealth by creating that first million.
Mhm.
And then seeing like what that means, how it feels, and then know that if others can do it, they can replicate it and do it again. And so it just gets me excited to share this information
Mhm.
with those people that hit play and
Mhm.
listen, because I think there's some things that can impact
Yeah.
people's lives.
Absolutely. And I'm here to say I've been told more than once that the first million is the toughest. After that, compound interest is your friend. One of the easiest things to think about is that your money will double every 7 years. So if you consider what it is you have in terms of assets right now, and by that I mean invested assets, they're invested in the market at a decent interest rate return. Um, and you're continuing to make sure that you're adding to it, your money will double every 7 years. So if we consider when you get to millionaire status, oh my gosh, in 7 years it's gonna double. That's exciting. It shouldn't take you near that 7 years should be much less than it took you to get to the million in the very first place. So be encouraged that it'll get easier after you hit that first millionaire milestone. And I'll say too, one of the things that was really helpful for us on our journey too was okay to think about what other milestones did we want to hit once we got out of debt, right? So that would be like our emergency fund, making sure that we got that to a certain place, or to pay down a certain amount on our house, or to, there may be milestones along the way, income milestones every year, right? Or being able to get our girls to graduate with no debt. Like we've done that one time and we're looking to do that again. And so there may be other financial milestones along the way that you can celebrate. Don't feel like millionaire has to be the ultimate end all be all. No, there are other things along the way that are exciting and you can celebrate, and that too, those wins are worthy of celebration for sure.
So let's talk about some practical things, because people might listen to this and say, rich, wealthy, millionaire, I'm not there. I've got $80,000 in student loan debt. I make $65,000 and, I got a car note and some credit cards. I'm nowhere in that ballpark. So let's talk about some practical things that people can do to get on this journey. And so I'll start off. And if you're in that, if you fit that bill of what I just laid out, if you're making $65,000 as an individual, first of all, I give you kudos because you're above the median household income for a family of four.
That's true.
So, first of all, recognize that you're doing okay.
Yep.
All right. And then just work the plan.
Mm-hmm.
It's not going to happen overnight. It's not all going to happen at once. So just work the plan. And Ericka, you said something that is crucial when it comes to working a plan. Be consistent.
Yeah.
And if you just start with the $500 a month, putting it into your 401k today,
Mm-hmm.
first of all, when you set those designations, you won't see it. And after a while, you won't miss it if you don't see it, because then you'll live off what's there, what's remaining. So that's just one basic thing to do that can get you on the road. What's something that you would say people should do from a practical perspective?
Well, it kind of falls into line with what you just said, and it is add up how much you're spending on debt today per month. So what are your total monthly payments that you're spending on debt? And be consistent about getting out. So make sure that you're thinking about how much extra per your budget you can put towards that. But the calculation that I think is important for you to make is whatever that number is. And I'll tell you, our number was over $1,100 a month when we had all of our payments. When we had our student loans, when we had our car payments, and we had our credit cards, our payments added up to over $1,100 a month. And when you put that in a calculator to see what that can grow to in 20 or 30 years, that's mind-blowing, right? And so when you have an average interest rate return of 10 or 12% over the course of 20 to 30 years, you can be a millionaire for real. And the reason why I get excited about this is because a lot of people think that they'll never get there. But the truth is that the debt is what's holding you back from being able to even consider it a possibility. And so I want you to have the vision for what's possible when you free yourself of that debt.
Look, I was having a conversation the other day with one of our kids, and we were just talking about some things that was going on with them, just trying to get some understanding, And as a dad, I just try and listen and, not always solve problems. And I've gotten better about that because I'm always a problem solver.
You're good at it. You're good at it.
It's like I'm a working Rubik's Cube all the time, solving problems.
That's going to be your middle name, Rubik's Cube. Chris Rubik's Cube Young.
No, I don't like that. But anyway, I was just saying, you got to make the main thing the main thing. And too many times people want to go in 20 different directions. And so when you are talking about going on a journey, even a trip, if you're taking a road trip, it's one direction, then the next direction, followed by another direction if you're ever going to get to your destination. If you try and do all the directions at once and make all of them a priority, you're never going to go anywhere because you're just going to be going around in circles and you're going to get lost. And so you have to make the main thing the main thing. And you say, well, what does that mean? Set a priority and focus on that priority. And don't let things get you off track. We know the Beyonce tickets her concert tour just came out and Everybody's like, I got to get Beyonce tickets. It's like, okay, well, is Beyonce tickets going to get you where you need to go? And if you decide to do it, budget for it, make the necessary adjustments that you may need, but make the main thing the main thing. Whatever that priority is that you've set, stick to that priority because there's always going to be something that comes along. There's always going to be something that comes up that tries to get you off track and derail you to try and focus you in on something else. When you said, this is my goal, it's January 1st, New Year's resolution, I'm going to do this. And then come February 15th, you're like, oh man, I gotta go because something else came up. Mm-hmm. Now emergencies will happen and, we'll talk another time about what a real emergency looks like because people call emergencies things that really are not emergencies. So
Yeah, that's really good. The main thing. I think if we can do that, we will get to where we need to be. That is prioritizing, it is potentially sacrificing, it might be rearranging in order for you to keep the main thing. I love that. I think that is our is it worth it or make it worth it statement, husband. I think that that's it. Make the main thing the main thing.
I love that because I want to see people go, from my definition, I want to see them go from, where they are today to hit that millionaire level. And I want them to, reach a level where they're considered to be rich. And I want to see people become wealthy because they're changing the generations, they're changing, their family trees, they're doing all these things. So this lasts beyond where they are today. It
Absolutely.
impacts their kids and their grandkids and great grandkids. That's what true wealth can do.
Yeah.
And I'm confident you guys can all do it out there.
Yep, absolutely. Keep your head in the game and keep the main thing the main thing. We're so glad that you joined us today. We're really thrilled to be on this journey with you and that you've entrusted us with a bit of your time. And so we hope that you decide to come back. Thanks for joining.
All right, we're out. Thank you for spending some of your time with us today.
We appreciate all your support. So be sure to subscribe, rate, and review us wherever you listen to this podcast.
You can find us on Instagram at For Better and Worth.
And sign up for our email on forbetterandworth.com.
Till next time, we're out of here.